Well, this roller coaster US presidential election campaign has been upended yet again, this time in the most sensational way. US President Joe Biden announcing he is quitting the presidential race after weeks of speculation and lots of internal pressure from within the Democratic Party to do just that. Joe Biden has been holding out up until this morning. His campaign was telling us he had no intention of going anywhere and was committed to the race. But just over 4 hours ago, this news is still so fresh, the President released a statement, and the key paragraph in that statement, I'll read it directly. It has been the greatest honour of my life to serve as your President, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as President for the remainder of my term. Confirming that Joe Biden is staying in the building behind us until his term ends, but he is out of this race. Bridge Lisa, good morning to you. Our North America Bureau Chief Jade Macmillan is right across events here in Washington. Jade, take us through how this news unfolded.
Well, look, I think this had seemed increasingly inevitable, Michael, given the enormous amount of pressure that Joe Biden had been under ever since that disastrous debate against Donald Trump. But that doesn't make this news any less shocking. As you say, this has completely upended the presidential race less than 4 months before Americans go to the polls, and just weeks before the Democratic National Convention, where Joe Biden would have been officially confirmed as the party's nominee. Now, he has, just after making this announcement that he was stepping aside, he has thrown his support behind his Vice President, Kamala Harris. We have seen some others in the party also doing so, some in Congress, also former President Bill Clinton, former candidate Hillary Clinton, getting behind Kamala Harris. But that does not mean that the Vice President will definitely end up as the Democratic nominee. There are others who are calling for an open contest. Kamala Harris, for her part, has released a statement saying that she is honoured to have the President's endorsement. Her intention, she says, is to earn and win the nomination. And she's put up a post on Instagram. We are, of course, very much in the social media era. Kamala Harris posting to her Instagram stories with a photo of herself with Joe Biden. Looks like it's been taken at the White House, asking for donations. We've seen some of this machinery starting to kick into gear. Joe Biden's campaign officially looking to change its name to Harris for President, giving every indication from their point of view that she would be the person at the top of the ticket, but far from settled, Michael.
This news dropped like the political bombshell that it is on what is a relaxed Sunday afternoon in America. Many Americans visiting tourist attractions like the big white place behind me, and I caught up with some of them here shortly after the news broke.
I think that's excellent.
Why is that?
Well, because he's mentally unfit to hold the office. And I don't mean that personally, physically.
I think it's really exciting. I mean, I think it's rare you see someone willingly sacrifice power, and kind of, it's been a while since we see people do the right thing.
I think it's very exciting. You know, personally, I wish it happened like a year ago to have like a full primary process, but it seems like the right thing to do. So in a binary sense, I think I'm very excited by that.
The views of American voters here at the White House a few hours ago, but shockwaves are being felt right across this country. Let's hear now from some voters in Ohio as to how they viewed President Biden's big announcement.
I think it's a good decision. I think he didn't have a chance against Trump. Too many people were concerned about his age, which I was too.
Look at what he's done to our world. I think Donald Trump should have been back a long time ago.
Would you have voted for Joe if he were still in the race?
I would have. I would have, simply because he can, there are certain things he can still do, but he can't campaign anymore.
OK, so views of some voters there in Ohio. Jade, and I'll toss it back to you, Bridge and Lisa. Yes, while we're talking about what's next, while we're talking about whether Kamala Harris will indeed secure the nomination, a lot of Americans, a lot of political leaders are focusing on Joe Biden, a man, a towering figure, you'd have to describe him, somebody who has dominated US political life as president, vice president, senator for nearly 50 years.
Glowing tributes flowing across the United States and really across the world. Thanks a lot, Michael and Jade. Donald Betts Jr. is with us. He's a former state senator, Democratic senator in the US. Terrific to have you here for your analysis. Just listening to those voters talking about how they're making up their minds, what goes through your mind? How do you think this decision will affect people who are on the fence?
Well, I constantly turn my mind to the potential vice president. That's going to make a real difference. Why is that? Because, you know, there's talk that Kamala Harris is, you know, more liberal, little L liberal, than most would, you know, in America would appreciate. So she would need to find someone a bit moderate, someone that can go toe-to-toe with Vance. So we're, you know, during that Democratic convention, I think we Democrats will be looking to see who that vice presidential pick will be to kind of balance out Kamala Harris's decisions. So when she goes and starts making major decisions that can have an effect across the world, who will be her
anchor, I guess.
Her anchor,
right?
you know, someone that she can go to say, you know, bounce this off of. What do you think about that? And be measured and in middle of the line rather than having, you know, herself to depend upon.
Donald Betts, thank you for joining us throughout the morning for your insights. Stay with us because I want to bring in the former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, this seemed to be a fait accompli. Did Joe Biden have any choice in the end but to go?
Look, he's made a really tough decision, a brave decision, but it's definitely the right decision. Biden's had a very, very successful presidency. He's achieved an enormous amount. But going into this election, his biggest vulnerability was his age and perceptions that he, you know, was no longer up to the job. So he's done the right thing in stepping back, and I think that's why it's being universally welcomed. You know, and of course, combined with great praise for his achievements.
Malcolm Turnbull, does this set a precedent going forward for there to be a sort of unofficial age cap on presidential candidates and all sorts of candidates across political contests?
Well, I don't know in the United States. I mean, it is the problem with their system, as opposed to our parliamentary system, is that it's very hard to remove a leader when they're in midstream, if you like, to change horses if they don't want to be changed. Our system's more flexible. I'm both a beneficiary and a victim of that, of course, but I think it has its merit. I think I imagine there will be a debate in the United States about setting a age limit. I mean, they have an age minimum for being a senator or being president. So maybe there should be an age cap. You know, I don't know what it should be. Maybe 75, but certainly Joe. Look, there's no question. Joe Biden's had three big problems, right, electorally. Number one, his age. And number two, the border, the perception that America is unable to control its southern border. And thirdly, inflation. And that's the problem of incumbent governments everywhere, including Mr. Albanese's here in Australia.
Interesting you mention inflation, Malcolm Turnbull, because already people are going back over all the words that Kamala Harris has said about inflation. One of the benefits of this move, I guess, is that finally policy will be the discussion for the last 4 months of this campaign, because there's 4 months to go, November the 5th, the election day.
Yeah, well, that's right, but character is always important. I mean, policy is important, absolutely, but character is really important. And she will be able to campaign very hard on character. She'll be able to point to Trump's convictions, you know, the bumper sticker, the prosecutor, who do you want to vote for, the prosecutor or the felon? She'll be able to point to Trump being found responsible for raping a woman in a civil case in New York. She'll be able to point to his lies about the 2020 election and so many other lies he's told. I mean, Trump has got passionate adherents, but he's also got passionate opponents who are appalled by his behaviour and his character. And what she's able to do, what she would be able to do, is get more of the independents to come to the Democratic side, I believe. But most importantly, remember the United States does not have compulsory voting. And so the party that has the most energised voting base has got a real advantage because their supporters get off the couch and go and vote. You know, young people were not inspired by Joe Biden. Hardly surprising. He's, older than most of their grandparents, I suspect. So a younger candidate, a younger nominee, I think is more likely to get the Democratic vote out. So she definitely would give them a better chance. Having said that, I still think Trump is a very strong favourite to win.
Yeah, a lot of people believe he's a formidable political opponent. In fact, you've dealt with him before, previously, infamously. Yeah. What does another 4 years of Donald Trump...
Effectively, you said infamously, but effectively. I mean, there's a lot of people at the moment talking about different ways of sucking up to Donald Trump. I did not suck up to Donald Trump. I stood my ground. I stood up for Australia, and I got very good outcomes for Australia. When you suck up to bullies, you just get more bullying. So I hope Mr. Albanese and any other Australian leaders who deal with Trump, if he is re-elected, remember that and don't fall into the sort of sucking up school of flattering American presidents.
What does another 4 years of Donald Trump potentially look like, do you believe?
Well, look, what you see is what you get. What has he promised? He will not continue to support Ukraine in the way Biden has. He admires and professes to be friends with all of the authoritarian dictators that we have regarded as our opponents, whether it's Kim Jong-un, Putin, or Xi Jinping in China. He's questioned why America should bother to defend Taiwan, and has said that the Taiwanese have stolen America's semiconductor business, and in any event, if they want American protection, they should be paying for it, like the way you'd pay an insurance company. I mean, he is and he wants to be, and professes to be, a really disruptive force internationally. So, America under Trump is a less reliable ally than it has been under Biden or under other presidents. I mean, that's a fact, and he sets out to be. I mean, when he was first president, we have it from John Bolton, his national security advisor. He wanted to pull out of NATO. So, he's going to impose a 60% additional tariff on all Chinese imports and a 10% tariff on all imports from anywhere in the world. So he's not just declaring a trade war against China, but in many respects, a trade war against trade. So this is a very different Republican Party under Trump. He's isolationist, he's protectionist. He's not troubled. He doesn't care about human rights abuses in China or Russia or North Korea. He has no interest in that. His only focus is on the transactional business of engaging with other countries and keeping America as far as possible out of foreign troubles. Now, that's a long tradition in American politics. It didn't just come up with Donald Trump, but it's a massive change for the Republican Party, and it's something we have to bear in mind. We can't fool ourselves and say, oh, everything's just going to be the same. I mean, that's what we said in 2016, by the way, when Trump was elected the first time. Everyone said, I remember having a discussion with Xi Jinping about this. It wasn't just the Australians. Around the world, people said, oh, yes, he's had all this colourful commentary in the campaign, but when he gets into office, he'll be institutionalised and it'll be kind of business as usual. Well, that proved to be wrong that time, and it'll be even more wrong next time if he is returned to the White House.
And it does make you wonder about the next 4 months and what that campaign will look like if Kamala Harris is the nominee. Malcolm Turnbull, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.